Hey everyone, it's me, Jonathan from Motor Psychology. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. And also if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And as always, your support is recognized and greatly appreciated. So this is a little bit of a deviation from doing the C3 Corvette. This is a practical repair that I'm doing on a 2009 Ford Escape V6 engine. I'm doing the entire front suspension, which is including the inner tie rods, outer tie rods, ball joints, sway bar link, and also new springs and strut assembly system as well. So I'll be putting that together. I'm not too sure how long it's going to take, but hopefully I can get it done without working too hard in a couple days. So stick around. Thanks for being here, and let's dive into it and see how it goes. So for the suspension, or the front left and right suspension for this 2009 Ford Escape, I pretty much have everything that you need. I've got ball joints in here, tie rod ends. I think this could be my older one here. No, that's a ball joint in there. A couple of those. This one here is the tie rod end. Right here, I've already installed one on the other side a couple months ago. Haven't used the car since though. Tie rod end. These ones are inner tie rods, which is this item here. This item here, that part screws in close to the engine, and this comes out, and then from there you've got your tie rod that goes on there. So I'm changing everything because the suspension is loose and knocking, so doing an overall suspension change. So that times 2, tie rod ends times 2, ball joints times 2. These are spacers, or an additional spacer set if need be to do my alignment. They're just very tiny part here in a big box, so you can't really see that, but it's a spacer. Whether or not I'm actually going to use that or not, we'll see. In here are, it's kind of like a stabilizer bar coming down from around the part of the strut and then down. You'll see that on the car. So I got 2 of those. In this box here I have a complete new right hub set, so let's check that out. See what this one's like in here. Good padding. Good to know. This part here is a complete brand new steering knuckle for the right side of the car, which will be awesome, and I hope to use that. Let me just take it out of the bag here. So the reason I got this one is the old one is rusted. I didn't want to refurbish it. This new one is good to go. It's a new casting and it has all the bearings in it. So yeah, I might as well put that one in. I probably should have got a left one as well, but I can still get one. So happy to get that in, and that's good to go. This also comes with a nut, spindle nut, to keep everything on, so that's great. Just leave that together. Finally, I have 2 complete strut, shock, and spring system. I was going to Just put in the new shock in the strut, but with the spring compress and everything, it's much more easier to get a complete set out. So I'll be replacing this as one unit, and I'll be taking the old one off at one unit. So that should work out well. So let's get out there to the car and start taking the tires off. I'll be working on the right side first, and hopefully I can get that done today and move on to the next side. So I've got the wheel off here. You can see that there's a little bit of surface rust on the disc. The brake caliper is a little bit rusty, but that's normal up here. And up here is the strut, and that's got to come off as well. And way in there are things like the tie rod. So we got to get after this and see how it goes. For general guidance, I'm using this thing here. It isn't as detailed as you'd want, but it does have some good descriptions and explanations on how to get this done. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and it's going to be based on this as well. So it's a literal interpretation of what you see in this book. So should be a good demo. So I will be replacing the tie rod end here. And this is the end. Way in here is the inner tie rod. That's going to be replaced as well. Here's the strut up there, and here's the link between the strut and the stabilizer bar. So these links are going to be replaced. The reason I'm doing that is when I'm driving this thing, it's very, very clunky and almost undrivable. The tires are being worn very crazily. So a lot of these things will have loose bushings in them. So I'm just going to replace them all while I'm at it, and take it from there. Hopefully things will go well. One of the first things I need to get off is this little nut here, or bolt, that is keeping this brake line attached to the strut. So I don't have to take the brake line out, but I just have to take this bracket off the strut since I'm going to be replacing the strut. Looks like it's just attached with one bolt, but we'll see. There we go. That's the brake sensor done. I'm just going to use my vice grips to hopefully pull that out. We'll see. Well, it's moving. There we go. So that was pretty easy. And from there, kind of take your brake hose out of here. There we go. So now you have your brake system separated from your strut. The next thing is going to be loosening the caliper, so I can put the caliper out of the way while I do the suspension stuff. I'm just waiting for some penetrant to work on the upper caliper mounting bolt. I can't get that one off. I got the bottom one off. I've loosened the castle nut off, or I've taken the castle nut off that tie rod end. I'm going to pop that one up right now. All right, let's try with the pickle fork in here. Usually works. There we go. We got the tie rod out. Get a little bit more movement on the steering now, which is good. Might be able to get this thing all the way over. So for the tie rod here, I'm not even going to bother with this until I get it on the bench, but my goal is to, as far as for an alignment point of view, is to make sure that I count how many threads I turn that off, and when I put it on the new inner tie rod, I'll just remember that. So there's no need right now to take this thing off, because I will be removing the inner tie rod. What I need to do is get the boot off. So way down here you have the boot. It's clamped here, and then there's a clamp way in there, which I'm not too sure how I'm gonna get that. All right, let's see if I can pinch this one off here. Should be pretty straightforward. Yeah, not an issue. All right, so now that boot there is loose. So way in here, there is a tiny marker, and you just have to hit that with a screwdriver. That will pop it open, and then you have that off. All right, I'm gonna go under and try and get that thing off. So you should be able to see way inside here. Let's see how that clamp has been knocked down a little bit. There. Now it's just about getting the sleeve moved towards here. So we should be able to slide all this stuff forward. So inside here is the tie rod, and then I'm just going to use the tool to undo it. It's a special tie rod tool, and I can show you that on the bench. But once again, this is kind of like a ball joint area in here, and that's why I'm replacing them, because I don't know if these are loose or not, and the entire suspension right now sucks. So we're going to get this thing off for sure. Kind of a close-up of what we're looking at here, way up there. That's where I'm going to attach the tool and then just wrench it off. So this is the inner tie rod removal tool. It's basically a clamp. You just undo these things here. You undo that, and this will clamp on the round side of the tie rod, inner tie rod, and then you get a long extension like this, put it in here and turn it, and it should come out. So I'm going to get that set up now. There you can see this tool is now clamped on in there, and there's the inner tie rod end. This is kind of like a C-clamp with some grip on it, and it's pretty much set up there. Then you grab an extension like this and you fire it in, and hopefully that allows you to turn that counterclockwise to get it off with a normal wrench. So that's the hope. Let's see how it goes. All right, let's hope this works. So in here I finally got that thing working, so it just basically works like that to loosen it, and once it's loosened you should be able to just twist it right out pretty much. If not, you go back in again with this thing. So you can just go back in here and just keep turning it around. Put that over. Was a little bit tough to get started, but once I got it going, we're good. There we go. So here it's out. We've got the clamp still on it, but yeah, it's nicely out. So way up here is the right inner connection for the right inner tie rod, and finally got that out. And now I still got to get the brake caliper mounting bolt. So I finally got the brake caliper off. This was the stickler here, was getting the mounting bolt out of here, which I've done, which is fine. I had to heat it and cool it and let it go through a few heat cycles with penetrant and a breaker bar. I got that off, so I'm resting this here. I don't need to actually touch that anymore until I'm putting everything back together. So the only thing that I have to do here is to remove the lower ball joint, and also to take out this thing here. And once that's out, then everything will come out this way, and the CV joint, part of the axle, is just going to stay in place here, so it'll just pull off. So we're going to do that. First I have to get after this ball joint at the bottom, and that's on the lower control arm, and that could be an issue to get off. So here's the ball joint under here. It also has kind of like open this up a little bit if the ball joint doesn't come off properly. So I'm going to get this thing out of here. The ball joint part is out. I'm going to get my hammer and smash that out. That should help it come out. Yeah. Nice. All right, there's the bolt for the ball joint. Now I got to split the steering knuckle from the control arm. So this is where the split's going to be. I'm going to try and open that up a little bit and then split it. I'm going to work at getting this sensor out here. Tap this on here a little bit. All right, hopefully this will work. Yep, nice. This is the ABS sensor. There we go. Loose. And now we can take off this sensor. Try and get it off with the screwdriver underneath. Slowly coming out. There we go. So we're getting close to getting this thing out. There's the sensor out, so now we can move ahead to get more of the steering knuckle off. All right, we're going to try and get these things off. All right, let's see if this will actually work here. We're slowly getting this off, and I got to do the bottom one as well. They're sticky, but they're still dry at the same time. Get that one out, and now onto the bottom one. Try the bottom one with the breaker bar. It's moving, that's a good thing. We're slowly getting it off here. Using my breaker bar on one side and the ratchet on the other side. Let's try this on this side, should work pretty well. Yeah, there we go. Same with this, should be able to tap it out no problem. And there we go, we've got this off. We've essentially got the steering knuckle off except for the ball joint. And there we've got it separated from there, which is good. So amongst all this mess, we've got this thing set up to get the ball joint out. So there's pressure coming down on the top of the ball joint and pressure coming up. So hopefully it'll push it through. I have no idea. This was a super tight fit for me. I'm trying to get some clearance. This was a significant amount of labor effort, I suppose. So using this ball joint remover, I was working hard on pressing out the ball joint on the lower control arm of the Ford Escape. So it took lots of time. First of all, you had to set up the remover like a giant C-clamp with the right dies, and also the receptacle where the ball joint will go. So this is pushing down on the ball joint, so pushing it through the control arm. And it was really a matter of just consistency. I decided to put some heat on here. The goal of the heat is to expand the metal on the lower control arm, just widening the hole where the ball joint fits in, just ever so slightly. That'll help that ball joint slide out. So I was successful. The last thing that I did was put some more penetrating oil on this to let it seep in, and then crank on the clamp again, and eventually I got it out. This is where I am this morning. So the entire steering knuckle and ball joint is out, and that's great. I still need to take off the strut, which I'm going to do. Here we have your CV joint here. This thing's going to have to be wiped off and re-greased before it goes in. Getting there. Sway bar link have to come off. Hopefully we'll get this done today. So getting ready to take this stabilizer bar. Here's the stabilizer bar, and this is the link that goes up to the strut. So I'm not going to bother taking it off of this part of the strut since I'm removing the entire strut, but I need to take the bottom one off, so I'm going to get after that one right now. I'm also going to wire brush the inside of this ball joint part of the control arm. So just using this ratcheted wrench to undo this part here. There we go. Take this guy out, pop this one off. There we go. So now I can take out this strut, which is great, and put in a new one. So we're going to go up top, open the hood, and then take this off. So looking into the engine, here's the mounts for the strut. So it should be as easy as just getting these things out. Just want to clean these things off. So this is a 9/16 bolt here, or nut. Shouldn't be too hard to get off. Super easy. You want to make sure that you're supporting the strut once you get to the last one to come out. I'm just going to put those over here. And we'll see if this starts lowering by itself. Yep. So I got to get something to support the strut. Just using my hand underneath to hold it. All right, strut's coming out. Here we go. All right, here's our completely empty wheel well. And you can see where the strut goes through up there. And now it's time to start rebuilding this thing. And here's the hole for the strut. So the other one is going to come through, reattach those bolts on there, and it'll be done. All right, here's the strut, brand new in box. I don't know what it actually looks like, but hopefully it's close. So let's just get this thing open. All right. Everything looks pretty good with this strut, as far as what I can see. Okay, so here is the connection rod to the stabilizer bar. It doesn't come with any of the little nuts, so I had to take them off of the original one. They're a little bit dirty, but they're cleaned up pretty well. So I'm going to install this thing before I stick this thing back in the car. This part here is made by Motorcraft for Ford. That's the part number right there. And it's a link. Made in the USA. All right, here's where we need to be for this one. Push this over on the bench. This part here literally just goes through, and as far as I can see, they're identical on both sides. So there's this little nut part, and that's so that you can actually hold this in place as you tighten it up. So this part here just goes under here like that, and take the old wash or the old nut, stick that on. There's also a hex on the top, which you can put a hex key in there to hold it as well, which is pretty convenient. That's probably what I'll use. All right, take this little guy here. These are super handy if you don't have a set. Open-ended wrench with a ratcheted socket end. Yeah, so this is just not going to be an issue getting it on. Now we can take this thing back out on the escape and just slide it through and attach the top parts as well. I'm also going to use the brand new nuts that came with that as well. They're very similar to those ones. Got a little bit of a better base to them. These will be handy to keep though. All right, let's put the strut through and see how it goes. I just wanted to point out that these struts show you which should be facing the outside, and you need to order a left and a right one. So that faces out, has an arrow to show you. Quickly get these in place. These new ones are 5/8. I don't think there's a torque on these, but I'll check. All right, the strut is in, and I'll show you what it looks like from down below. So here's the new strut, nice and clean and in place. With the stability bar on, which is great. That was too easy to do that way. So pretty happy with that. Now we got to move on to putting the ball joint in down here. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit, put some oil on it, and then press the ball joint in, clean that, and then start putting the steering knuckle back together and everything else back together. All right, this is a pretty good look at the inside of the lower control arm, and it's nice and clean. I'll put some oil on there and then just press the ball joint in there. I'm just going to attach the link to the stabilizer bar before I move on to the ball joint. The ball joint itself in this package is really good. It's got the nut and bolt that pinches it together on the steering knuckle, which is excellent, and I'll show you that as I put that in. So this just simply goes through here like so. A little bit of a weird fit. I almost have this in. It's just a little bit of wiggling around here. There we go. Just push that a bit forward. Worked all right. Put the old nut back on it. So the strut is in and this link is in, which is great. So I'm going to try and set up the ball joint press the same way as here. Here's your control arm. The ball joint is here, and you've got a press at the back or at the bottom, and you've got a receiving tube and a top. So just got to get that set up, and then we can start turning it, and hopefully the ball joint will fit in place, no problem. This is the actual ball joint. Let's check that out. There's the ball joint, same size, nice and firm. Can't even move it. Looks good, should press in fine. And as mentioned, there's the bolt that will pinch the back of the steering knuckle to keep the ball joint in place. So I'm going to go set up and press this thing in. So I'm just going to put a bit of regular multi-purpose oil on here, just to allow it to hopefully slip in better. The ball joint's going to come in from the bottom, like so. And I'm going to use this thing as the press part. And just tap it a little bit evenly here. There, that's nicely in place there. So here's my setup again. I changed it slightly. I just have a tiny little bit left to go under here. I don't know if you can see that. This thing has to make it all the way up to there. And once that's done, the ball joint is in. So the setup for me, this thing here, with a small die on top, and this thing as a receiving tube for the ball joint. All right, let's see how it looks. It's not easy to get off. Sometimes if you have your car up, you can use a pneumatic impact gun, but it looks like it's done the trick. All right, yeah, so nicely in. There we go, new ball joint. Telltale signs that it's in is, can you see the ridges that made it through? So if you are doing it, look for those, these little ridges, make it through. And then there's a lip on the bottom. So somewhere around here, there's a little lip that won't go in. So that's what you want to look for there. I'm just doing the installation of the inner tie rod right now. So you just have to kind of fish it through the hole and line the threads up and turn it in clockwise. You'll notice that I've already got this special inner tie rod attachment kind of C-clamp in there. So once you get it hand tightened, then you can get your extension in there and leverage it in as tight as you can. So I didn't put it in as super tight because at some time maybe I want to take it off, but it's very tight. And what I'll be moving on to now is just removing this thing and then putting the tie rod end on and threading that on. So when you watch me thread the tie rod end on, I've already pre-measured how many threads that I need to turn it on. So here we go, there's the clamp that's out. And now I'm going to put the boot on. What I used at the very back where the boot is closest to where I had to thread it in is I used a zip tie to kind of thread it around and tie it up, and then I just replaced the clamp. And now we're just checking to make sure that it's firm here, and we're going to put on this adjustment nut here. And after this, I'm going to thread on the tie rod end. And I'm doing it relatively slowly, or I'm counting each time I turn it around. So I'm measuring how many times, and it was probably about 20 or 21 or something like that. And then you have your adjustment bolt or your adjustment nut come in here, and you can just tighten it up. And once you've got it tightened, it will not move as far as changing. But that is your adjustment nut that you use when you're doing an alignment to make sure that your tie rod is in alignment. So after I completed the work on both sides of this cart, I took it in and got it aligned, and it was relatively close, so I was happy about that. So here we go. We're pretty much done with this part, and we're going to get moving on to the next section here. Oh, this one had a grease nipple here, so I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to load it up with grease and then move on to the next part of this job. And for those people who are interested, I believe I got the majority of these parts from rockauto.com, and I just went through the list, ordered them all, and they more or less arrived within the same time period, and I was good to go. Before I put in the new steering knuckle, I'm going to clean this off with brake cleaner because I want to get all these little things off of here. Hopefully it'll work. Let's see. I may need a brush here. So after I cleaned off the spindle there, I greased it up so that it is clean and greased up, and now I'm just trying to line up the splines on that and then push it into the hub. So it may look more difficult on camera, but it's really that simple. You just hold it and try and align it, and then once it's in, it's just a matter of setting it on the ball joint and then aligning the top up with the strut and then attaching that. So all in all, it's a little bit of a heavy piece, but once you get it set up and in the hub onto the axle, everything is good. I'm putting on blue Loctite here, and it's recommended to put it on for these bolts that attach the steering knuckle to the strut, and also it's recommended to put the blue Loctite on the caliper mounting bolts as well. So that's a couple reasons when you saw me remove them. They were tough to remove. So these, the reason for the blue Loctite is you need to obviously get it to be removed, but it also means that none of these bolts are going to become loose from road vibration and things like that. All right, that's good. So I'm ready to put the pinch bolt on the ball joint. That goes on at 52 foot-pounds for that. I've also got to put the caliper back on, and these are the mounting areas. I'll put the disc on. These things have been torqued. These are 85 foot-pounds. I also have to put the tie rod end in the tie rod end spot on the steering knuckle. Then I'll put the disc back on, and I'll put the brakes on and tighten it up, and we should be pretty much done. So we're getting ready to put the tie rod end in. It's just going to fit into the steering knuckle here. There we go. Put the castle nut on. The torque value for the nut at the bottom is 59. There we go. All right, there we go. The tie rod is in. I need to put some grease in there. Let's clip this on the top. Squirt some in. Wipe this down. All right, I'm going to take this nut and bolt and stick it through here. This is the old one, which would have been doable. But it's really nice that the company put in one of these, and also it has a nylon washer in here to keep it from slipping. So sticking that through. So this one is going to get tightened to 52 foot-pounds. There we go. So we're getting there. We've got the ball joint in, the bolt down here, that's at 52 foot-pounds. That's the pinch top, and you can see that's in nicely. And then moving up, everything's looking good all the way up the top. And then also the sway bar coming in here. I think I'll put the torque values in the description so you guys can see what those are. And we've got the tie rod going all the way into the engine compartment. I still have to put a bracket up there, or a clamp, which I'm going to do. I'm going to just zip tie it up at the top, and that'll keep the dust out. Now we'll move on to getting the calipers on and the sensor. So I'm going to put the sensor in now. So we're down here. We've got to attach this little sensor. It fits right in there perfectly. And the screw is here. So that's in pretty much. There we go. And with that, once I get the caliper in, it's going to go in this clip here, and this guy's going to go over top of it. All right, time to put the disc on. It's great. And now time to get the caliper on. Just putting a few of these in to keep this in place here. There we go. Now it's time to put the mounting bolts on. I'm going to use some blue Loctite on this, just so this doesn't shimmy later on. So let's get this done. So I lined this up. I got this one going in. Put some blue Loctite on it, and that just goes through here. And I can't even see the upper one yet, but hopefully I'll be able to get that one in. Ooh, still off a bit. Perfect. Ow. All right, got a nice extension here. All right, let's mount these. I've got these, I'm going to torque these in to about 100. Awkward spot, that's for sure. There's a couple end caps that go in right up here. You can probably see that there. And there's one just below it as well. Those protect the bolts for getting the caliper mounting brackets out. Next thing to do is put this brake hose in, which is gonna be, there we go. Just gotta line it up. This thing slides in. Just tap that in. There we go. It's in place. Everything's good to go. Time to stick this guy on here. There we go. Put things on slowly. Torque these on at 100 or so. There we go. Hey, thanks a lot for sticking around and watching this rather long video, but it details the process and hopefully it'll be helpful to somebody out there. And if not, hopefully it was entertaining and interesting for you folks out there. So once again, thanks a lot for sticking around with the channel. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you all right back here at Motor Psychology next time.